Hi, this is Steve Adubato. Welcome to Think Tank, the podcast with me, Steve Adubato, and my colleague, Mary Gamba, who has been working with me for many years and is going to tell folks before we listen to another edition of Think Tank, the podcast with compelling and, frankly, provocative, I like using that word, to get you off your butt to do something about what's wrong in our society. You're about to hear someone who can tell you exactly what to do, but right now Mary's going to tell you how to find us.
Absolutely. You could subscribe to Think Tank Podcasts at Apple iTunes or on Google Play. You could visit our website, steveadubato.org. That's ADUBATO. And you could also follow us on Twitter at Steve Adubato and on Facebook at Steve Adubato PhD to check out all of our amazing content and to hear more amazing podcasts.
So you might be asking, who's on Think Tank, the podcast today? I'll tell you exactly who it is. It is a young lady I've known for a long time. She is Ginger Gold Schnitzer, and she's executive director of something called the Guarini. That's Frank Guarini, former congressman for many, many years in Hudson County. Frank Guarini Institute for Government and Leadership at St. Peter's University, a university we've had a relationship with for a long time with their president, Dr. Jean Cornacchia, who in fact is a political scientist, so it's no surprise to me that they've established this institute. You know, Ginger has spent many years with the New Jersey Education Association as a lobbyist. She switched over to academia, and she had a quote in this podcast that I want to state right now, and you'll hear in just a bit. She said, and I've often said things like this, but she says it a lot better. Democracy is not a spectator sport. Everyone has a role in it. We need places and venues where we can take the time to do more than tweet about issues. Now, we've been talking about this a lot. That is exactly why there's Think Tank, the podcast, because we want to go deeper into the issues that matter in our lives. Someone might say, oh, that's boring. We just want to know what the polls say about the 2020 presidential election. Who's ahead? Who's behind? What's happening with Biden? What's happening with Harris? What's happening with Donald Trump? What's his latest tweet? We say,
it's important to understand what's at the root of the issues, how it's going to impact you regardless of your age, but more importantly, for something like this at the Guarini Institute of Government and Leadership at St. Peter's University. We always talk badly about millennials and how they are lazy or not getting disengaged. And that's not the case. This gives these millennials an opportunity to dive deep, to learn more, and to frankly get involved and be engaged citizens because they are the future. And we need them to do that. But we need a place where they can learn, not just on Twitter.
So that's the whole point of having Ginger Gold Schnitzer from St. Peter's University on the podcast. So listen, as you listen to this, ask yourself this question. Not just how interesting is she, how interesting and compelling is this podcast, but I've said this before. Ask yourself the question, what can you do to make a difference? How can you participate in making our society better? That's what this is about. Citizenship, leadership, and about our government. Remember, it ain't the Democrats and it ain't the Republicans. They don't own the government. We, the people, last time I checked and looked at the Constitution, we own the government. It's ours to improve, or it's ours to say, hey, listen, I hope somebody else steps up and does something. In this podcast with Ginger, you'll find a very different point of view. Check it out. Think Tank, the podcast with Steve Adubato and Ginger Gold Schnitzer. Welcome to State of Affairs. I'm Steve Adubato. I'm very proud to be coming to you. We are coming from the Agnes Varis NJTV studio in beautiful Brick City, Newark, New Jersey. It's our pleasure to introduce Ginger Gold Schnitzer, who is Executive Director of the Guarini Institute for Government and Leadership at St. Peter's University. Good to see you.
Good to see you, Steve.
I knew you when you were a kid.
I know, it feels like that, right?
Okay, so you've been with a couple of not-for-profits, advocacy organizations, sure. Right? 22 years at the NJEA?
22 years.
The New Jersey Education Association.
Absolutely.
So let me ask you this. I'm curious about this. You make the transition from lobbying and advocacy work for the New Jersey Education Association to a university setting. Yep. Ivory Tower or grounded in reality?
Grounded in reality.
Break it down.
Absolutely grounded in reality. Look, as I see it, our mission is to inspire the next generation of public servants, of policymakers, and of just informed citizens, right? Our democracy is counting on it. I have spent the last 25 years in Trenton working in legislative advocacy.
Education issues.
Education issues, and before that, a whole bunch of other issues.
Right.
But the point being, Steve, is that what I come to realize is that, when I graduated, I thought that if you read the bill, you knew what to do. And then I thought if you build the relationships, you'll impact public policy. And then I thought if you organize, you'll impact public policy. And then I thought if we elect our own members or you elect your own people, you'll impact public policy. But at the end of the day, we need to better prepare humans to impact public policy. Where do you go to prepare humans? A university.
So let's play devil's advocate here. You know politics well, you know policy well. It took you a few years to start understanding how, I hate saying this expression, how the sausage is made, but that is part of it. But at the Guarini Institute, named after, by the way, former United States Congressman Frank Guarini, represented Hudson County, Jersey City area, just a class act. And he was very much a part of the St. Peter's University community. I'm going to ask you this. You have said something that I like to say a lot. Democracy is not a spectator sport. What do you mean by that? I know what I mean. What do you mean more importantly?
I mean that if we don't engage, if we don't know the issues, if we don't take the time to share our opinions with the people making the decisions, it's like writing a blank check for anything to happen. And so part of that mission is to study policy and what's going on. Part of that mission is to figure out how to get it done, how it works and how to work it.
But who? The devil's advocate question really comes down to citizens. I mean, listen, we want citizens to be involved, but there are a whole bunch of folks watching saying, wait a minute, how am I supposed to be involved? That's why I elected him. That's why I elected her. That's what their job is. But that doesn't work.
No, you know what? If public policy is how we make the rules for our society, right? And who doesn't want to be at the table when the rules are being made? And there's lots of different ways you can take your seat at the table, right? Some people find it in elected office. You tried that for a while, right? But you found another seat at the table.
Did you have to bring that up?
Oh, I'm sorry. Come on, we just know each other a long time.
Yes, that's right. You were a young lobbyist down there when I was in my first term in the legislature in the mid-'80s. But the reality is I learned in that short period of time that you think you know how it works, but is it three-quarters of it relationships?
So look, it's real. A lot of it is about relationships, but you also have to understand the process. There's the process, what the textbook says, and there's how it really works. And before people can engage in this effectively, we need to share with them how it really works.
What about
Policy has a lot
students,
of
though?
constraints.
I'm sorry for interrupting.
No, go ahead.
You said that students, you're trying to prepare students for what?
I want to prepare students, if they're interested in a career in public policy, to pursue it. If they're interested to not have a career in public policy, I want them to understand that public policy, that policy making, that laws and regulations and the implementation of them affect their daily lives. And it's their responsibility to know it and to do something about it. That may be putting people in office who share their values. So it could be as simple as voting and being an informed voter. That could be as complex as, going to become the head of an agency or a department in state or national government.
In fact, there's we're taping this on the 9th, right, Patty? The 9th of April. So this may be seen after, on the 24th of April at St. Peter's University at the Guarini Institute. There is a policy discussion called In the Weeds. This is about the legalization of marijuana?
Absolutely.
Why would you start with that as your first forum?
Because it's the hottest issue in the legislature right now. And it's an ideal place to discuss it on a college campus where we have many students that may be really interested in that, right? And so it's if they're discussing it in Trenton, and if it's something that could happen in our state, and by the way, over 80% of our students at St. Peter's are from New Jersey, then we should be talking about it. We should be getting their feedback, their buy-in, their excitement for one side of the issue or the other, and try to show them that policy is really relevant to them. And by the way, I don't want to limit what Guarini Institute will do to just our students at St. Peter's University. We're going to hold programs that are free and open to the public. It's part of our mandate.
Even though it's a university, it's not just for students.
It's not just for students.
I'm going to expand the conversation. There's a good chance we're going to use this conversation for our think tank. Check out our website. We have a new series called Think Tank. There's a podcast that goes with it. And when we discuss some things that have national implications, we've included it. And I'll tell you why I'm asking this. I'm obsessed by, hopefully in a healthy way, the tone and tenor, the negative, nasty, ugly tone and tenor of political discourse in our nation. Are you?
I am, and that's one of the things I said when I said we need to find a place to create better humans or better prepare humans for this work. Better preparing humans for this work might entail, how do we get this done without some of that?
Could you see what goes on in Washington every day? We see Trenton's not as bad.
Trenton's not as bad.
But let's do Washington for a second.
Sure.
The name calling, the pettiness, I'm not going to have you're not getting that gateway tunnel until I get my wall. And it's not just about Donald Trump. Democrats are just as guilty as anyone else. You're an optimist by nature, but do you see the leadership because you have a leadership, an institute about government and leadership, do you see the political leadership to do that in Washington right now?
Look, I think that political leadership, no matter where you are in your leadership, you have potential. And I believe with the right civic engagement and pressure on our leaders, when we reject that as an appropriate discourse, then we do have the power to change it.
You mean that people need to demand better from those in leadership positions?
And people need to not respond to negative stuff.
Because some people say, I like that. I like when people are say what they think. But hold on, but what about if they think? Because you're calling someone a name. What does that have to do with policy?
Or worse, if you're making somebody in this country feel marginalized by their race or their religion or, right?
Yeah, by the way, I'm curious about this. Future forums that the Guarini Institute are going to have. I know there's one you're going to do on healthcare, another one on economic development, budget and taxes. Immigration in the mix or no?
Sure. Our students are very interested.
Sorry for interrupting. A very diverse population.
Yes, and frankly, I've been going to political science classes in the last week and talking about the Guarini Institute. And I always ask students when I go there, I say, tell me what you're passionate about. And immigration's come up a lot. And then I ask them this follow-up question is, okay, you told me what you're passionate about. Now, what are you doing about it?
And what do they want to see done?
Right. Well, I want to know what they're doing about it because the Guarini Institute, I like to think that we're going to be about putting your passion into action.
As opposed to like we just talked about it? That's not enough, that we talk?
Look, talking is a very important part, right? The conversations you always hear around election time that there's nothing more influential than the conversations we have around the dinner table. So let's raise the quality of those conversations.
That's right. And if it doesn't start there, then why would we expect it to start in Trenton or Washington or anywhere else? Ginger Gold Schnitzer is Executive Director of the Guarini Institute for Government and Leadership at St. Peter's University. They're, in fact, one of the supporters of what we do here at the Caucus Educational Corporation. We wish you nothing but the best. 22 years at the NJEA, now switching over to higher ed. We wish you all the best.
Thanks, Steve.
Okay.
Thanks
Stay
for having
right
me.
there. I'm Steve Adubato. This is State of Affairs, and we will be right back.
State of Affairs with Steve Adubato is a production of the Caucus Educational Corporation, celebrating over 30 years of broadcast excellence. Funding for this edition of State of Affairs with Steve Adubato has been provided by the Turrell Fund, supporting Right from the Start NJ, Holy Name Medical Center, This Place is Different, NJM Insurance Group, Wells Fargo, New Jersey Resources, and by the New Jersey Education Association.